Welcome to another episode of the JBK Show. On this week's episode, we've got a great guest in the UK. We're on the road, Picklebet on tour. This guy has been playing for over 10 years, first grade rugby league, former NRL player, been at Penrith, been at Canberra. The West Tigers. He's now at Leeds, playing for the Leeds Rhinos. He's still got a lot left in the tank. Blake Austin, thank you for making the trip down.
Cheers, boys. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having clothes on.
No, that's okay.
Might have been budgies when I walked in. So.
Yeah, no, we'll sort you out with some on-tour budgie smugglers.
Save them for Wimbledon.
Yeah, we're going to do a Wimbledon video.
No worries.
But, mate, no, I really appreciate you taking the time, coming down all the way from Leeds, meeting us in the UK. It's a pleasure to talk to you. We've watched pretty much your whole career. We've been following the NRL for pretty much our whole lives. And, you've had a really solid first-grade career. You're over in England now with a lot of first graders that made the transition to the UK. How's the UK been to you?
It's been great, yeah. You asked me when I got here. I've been here 5 years now. We had COVID in between there, which made for an interesting time. But having a family of four, obviously, when everything's happy at home, you can sort of live anywhere. If you're happy with your job and what you're earning, it's life can get pretty smooth. And so far, that's been the case here in the UK.
Does the weather suck as much? Like, we've had 2 days of rain. It's supposed to be summer. How's the weather?
Yeah, it's awful. Obviously, everyone hears your accent, and the first thing they want to ask you is what you're doing here. But the weather's a strange one too, because when it's hot, it'll register as like 22, 23 degrees, and I'm sure it's a lot hotter. People say it's because you've been starved of the sun so long, but 22 here, I reckon, is like 32 back home. And then obviously the cold winters, they're the hardest thing. I think people don't realise too, the sun goes down at about 3:30 in the afternoon. So
During the winter.
the winter.
That's terrible.
So you've got nothing else to do but sort of sit on your couch and, eat tea and biscuits. So the NRL boys that come over, if you're not someone that's really diligent with your training, you can pack on some kilos pretty quick because there's just nothing else to do once the sun goes down.
Because while we've been here, it's been
opposite.
It's sun goes down at like 9:30, which I love. It's the best part of the trip.
Yeah, but try explaining to your 5-year-old that it's bedtime at 7 o'clock, and they're like, it's still time to play.
Let's go for a run. Let's go to the park.
That's the difficult part of that. Obviously, daylight savings back home is a wonderful time of year, and that's one of the things I miss most is them summer evenings. But yeah, the sun, it certainly stays that a while here in summer.
So it's pretty much Canberra, you could say. No, I'm not joking. No, okay, no. But do you still keep up with the NRL back home? You still watch some of your old teammates? How do you still keep an eye on it?
Yeah, when I first come over, I made the decision to sort of zone out from it a bit. When I come over, I was only 27, so I probably come a little bit younger than what I'd planned to, but I come at an age where I can still earn some decent pounds and come over and enjoy that side of it. So as it was, I knew with my English heritage that, I could potentially further my career. I don't know if I furthered. I got a Great Britain jersey, but a couple of games on the wing weren't too enjoyable. But yeah, I watch it a lot more now. I sort of zoned out because I didn't want to miss home. I knew if I'd come over and kept my eye on the NRL every weekend, I'd question what I was doing here and get pretty homesick. So, but now that I've been here a good chunk of years, I certainly watch a lot of rugby. I'm a rugby geek. I have a lot of mates still running around that I'm enjoying watching and get to watch it as a bit of a neutral.
Because you said you grew up as an Eagles fan. Your son's a Penrith fan.
Yeah.
So when looking at the NRL, who do you actually go for? Who do you want to support? Who do you like seeing win?
I'm going to have to put on record. I think I'll jump back on the Eels bandwagon when I go back. They're my youngest memories of being an Eels fan. I've actually always said that the shittest thing about being a rugby player is you don't get to be a rugby fan. So
true.
When it's all said and done, I can't wait to, I see dads and kids at the rugby with packed lunches and they're out for the day watching their favourite team, and that's something I can't wait to do when I get back.
When you say that it's hard to be a fan while you're a player, is it because it becomes like a business? It's your profession. A club might turn you off the way that you've been treated. Not to say like that's happened to you, but is that it becomes like a job?
Yeah, but also you can't have an opinion on the sport while you're in the sport. Like you don't want to be that douchebag that's freaking even social media stuff. You can't grab your phone and talk about how crap a team just went when you're versing them week in, week out, and it's going to get thrown back in your face the following week when you have a bad game. So, I just want to enjoy it. Like it is a great sport. I tell anyone that will listen in this country how great our sport is, because it's pretty sad how low how low rugby league, or rugby as they call it, ranks in this country. Obviously, football's a hell of a beast, and no one's ever going to knock that off its perch. But yeah, Stuart Pearce, I think he played for Man City and he captained England, and he's a big rugby league fan. I listened to him speak one time, and he believes that if we could wipe everyone's memory and start fresh again, like rugby league would be the winner. But so he's really passionate about our sport. It's just not too many other people in this country are.
The UK is probably stuck in the tradition of the higher class sports of rugby union, cricket. You know what I mean? But you could be right. Football as well, yeah.
So what's the hierarchy? Soccer, then cricket, or then rugby?
We're a better TV product than Union, but all them boys earn a lot more than us for whatever reason that is. Cricket would rank higher. Bloody darts. Have you seen darts on
Darts
TV
goes
here?
nuts. Yeah,
I think Eddie Hearn might have taken over darts a few years back.
Looks like a great piss up, but also great entertainment.
Well, they've got it to a point where it's unbelievable. Like the trip you guys have been on, if you can get yourself to a darts, like it's a big piss up, and they're rock stars. The guys over here, snooker's on TV here. Like there's a lot of old traditions in England, and as Aussies, you sort of can't understand a lot of them, but they do like some of their older sports.
Well, let's talk about your junior footy, because you grew up a Penrith junior. You're a Western Sydney boy.
Yep.
Grew up in Doonside. Did you ultimately want to graduate to playing for the Penrith Panthers? Was that your ultimate goal when you started playing footy? Did you play much of the junior reps?
Yeah. Obviously, the way it works in Oz is the team that your amateur clubs, as they call them here, are linked with. So I knew my easiest path was going to be through the Panthers. So I had a soft spot. Like I watched them in the 03 grand final. Mum and Dad drove us up to Panthers after to watch them get back to the Leeds club. Craig Gower getting off the bus blind.
Reece
and things like that.
That's
Reece
one of my
Wesser,
earliest memories
Preston
of rugby
Campbell.
league. Yeah.
So I had a really good soft spot, and we used to get the footy cards, didn't we? When you play amateur, so we'd go to all the Panthers matches. But I was just a deep down a Parramatta fan. I come from a long line of them, and living over here, like my son's 12, my wife's Samoan, so I've got, half-caste kids living here that don't really understand who they are. Like they're living in a country of white English people that, my son, with his rugby career, he doesn't really understand what he can be and how scary he can be. Like I was the skinny white kid that grew up, fearing all those guys on the rugby pitch. And so one of my regrets is that I'm not back in Oz raising the kids back in Western Sydney around more of their own people, because I think, belonging and stuff like that's really important for kids when they're growing up. But all we can do is the best for our kids and what we think is right at the time, and we give them a great life. But I'm 32, my son's 12, my daughters are growing up. I'm getting to that point where we're really starting to think about, getting them back home and settling them.
Half Samoan, so does your kid look like Sonny Bill?
He gets the rosy cheeks, yeah. I don't think he's going to have too many issues with the girls as he gets a bit older. He's a very shy young kid, which is good. He's a brilliant kid, so humble, nothing like his dad. Like my eldest daughter, she's the most like me. She plays football now. I call her Mo Salah. I call myself Mo Salah because she'll have 100 shots and she'll miss 96, but she'll always come off the field with 4 goals.
Yeah,
and that's all anyone will remember. Whereas my son's a bit more. My son's more talented and gifted, but in the brain he's just so humble and he'll stand aside, wait his turn, and so I'm trying to roughen him up a little bit. But yeah, he's a good looking young kid.
Taking to Western Sydney, that'll toughen him up. Sounds like he'll be a heck of a footy player. So you broke into first grade at the Penrith Panthers. What was that like? What was your welcome to first grade moment when you got into the NRL?
Kid from Western Sydney, it's all I ever wanted to do. So when you make it, you think you're pretty hot stuff. Come through St Dominic's College. We obviously had the ties with Panthers. Just it's hard. Like looking back, one thing I would have changed is my goal was always to make NRL. I never really set anything past that. Like being a geek and a nerd and loving rugby as much as I did, one game was always going to be enough for me. So whatever sort of come after that was a bonus. I was always pretty gifted. So probably as I was young, probably didn't work quite hard enough.
What do you mean? Would you have like to set the goal of like kangaroo jersey, New South Wales?
Just aiming a bit higher and looking past because everyone reminds you that the average NRL career is it's like 20 games or something like that. And
something like only 3% of people make it.
Yeah, well, it's only 3%. So then getting one game seems like the golden ticket, you know what I mean? And that's what we aim for. But as it's panned out, I've been pretty proud of the journey I've been on. Anyone that can say they've played professional sport for, 10 plus years is quite an achievement, and hopefully still another couple of years left.
What do you remember from your debut? So getting called up, was it a late inclusion or you just
Yeah,
preparing all week? How'd it go?
It had been a long year, so Panthers had sacked Matt Elliott and Steve Georgalis took over as head coach. It was funny. I was playing 20s and we'd lost so many games, and I went to him and I said, I want to debut this year. Do you think for my development, should I go and play for Windsor Wolves, the New South Wales Cup team? And he said, yeah, might be a good idea. So I've gone to play for the Wolves, and the 20s team had then gone on a run of 7 or 8 games in a row. So I'm going, fucking hell, have I made the right decision here? And then as it was, the second last round of the season, he called me in. He said, I'm going to play you this week. And he said, do you want me to name you in the big league program, or do you want me to, so you can fly in under the radar so no one knows you're playing? And I said, get my name in the big league this week. I want everyone knowing that I'm debuting this week. So yeah, it was a really good experience. I travelled down to Canberra. I come off the bench and played back row. Actually, I was a back row / 5'8" / no one sort of knew what I was going to play. And my first hit up, as it panned out, I was pretty keen. So I got on the field and I decided to run straight at a guy called Josh Papali, and turns out to be one of my really good mates now. But thank God he lifted me. He didn't do as much damage as he probably could have. He got underneath me and picked me up and drove me into the floor. But that was a pretty good introduction to the game.
There you go. I mean, you went on to play at the West Tigers as well, then gone on to play at Canberra under coaches like Mick Potter, Ricky Stewart. Have you enjoyed your footy at a certain place over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I think my season at the Tigers was probably most pivotal for me because I was 23 at the time and I'd hit a roadblock at the Panthers, and I sort of thought, I'm 23, I'm a decent player, the clubs will line up, I'll find somewhere new and we'll get going again. And as it panned out, nothing really reared its head, and I was like, man, my career could be over as quick as it started. And I decided to train my ass off and get in the best shape of my life, and that's what I reckon that 6 months of training sort of carried me for 2 or 3 years after that. I went to the Tigers just for an opportunity. Braith Anasta was the 6, and I was like, well, he's on older legs. I'm sure if I work my backside off, I could force my way in at some point. And
he had the grey hairs by that point.
He did have the grey hairs by that point. I think I've heard him say on 360 the club's not been the same since he left. So,
he'd say that for sure.
But Braith was great with me, and in the end, I played 19 games that season, and ultimately that was what got the attention of Ricky. And he was the first NRL coach that called me and said, we want you to come to our club to be an NRL half. The 6 jersey's yours, and we want you to come and play that. So that was enjoyable. And then 2015, probably the best year of my life. Like, as a kid that just wanted to play NRL, to then have the impact I was having on games, that year, albeit like none of my other years probably ever reached them heights, but that year was it was looking back, it was just the whole season I was on a high. And then
it was, Dally M 5'8" of the year.
That topped it off, to grab that. I think Anthony Milford, James Maloney, and Michael Morgan were the 4 nominees for the award. And obviously Milford played in the grand final. James Maloney, and Michael Morgan was the other one in the grand final. So to have my name read out that night was like, man, this is the sport I love, and I've been able to do this. And yeah, that year was pretty unbelievable.
And then you also, I think, Canberra finished in the top 4 that year as well. So it was a successful season on your part. Just in terms of your game, especially in that year, you reached the heights of, especially in your position as a 5'8". But did you model your game off anyone that you looked up to, especially growing up, or someone that you looked opposite, playing in the league?
As a kid, I always looked at the bigger running 5'8". I think Trent Barrett was always someone that I watched pretty closely. Greg Bird in his younger career played a lot of 6 with the Sharks and even a bit at the Titans, but it was always the bigger running 5'8" that I'd sort of model my game off, yeah.
Was Wade Graham playing juniors around your time?
Yeah, me and Wado played in we actually played in the under-12s PWSA team together. We toured Darwin. Me and a guy called Matthew Wright, we were 2 11-year-olds in the under-12s team. I joke with the boys that my career actually peaked at 11 years old. Like, I was pretty shit hot as an 11-year-old. I used to wear a blue headgear. I was pretty fast, and I used to rock up to the carnivals. And C still talks about it now. Like, he can remember coming to a New South Wales under-11s carnival, and everyone was like, "Oh, the kid with the blue headgear for Sydney West, he's the one." And So yeah, I played with Wado there, and
Because he was that type of big 5'8",
Yeah.
that transitions to second rower.
and he was a lot like me, probably at Penrith, that no one could really commit to where I was going to end up. I actually played hooker in Harold Matts, and then I shot up to about 6 foot, and I was like still only 65 kilos. So I was a tall, skinny hooker. So you can imagine the back wasn't, the back was getting a bit sore, bending over, picking up the ball. But then I transitioned to a lock. That was the thing too. When I first come into the NRL, I was having to stay heavy enough for when they asked me to play in the forwards, and then I had to be nimble enough for when they'd say play in the halves. So when I went to Tigers, I thought, screw it, I'm not going to listen to anyone else. I want to be a half, so I'm going to get my body and everything else in shape to be a half. And in the end, probably panned out well.
And then you go on from Canberra to then sign with the English Super League. Before you head over to the Super League, were there any clubs that had shown interest in signing you? Did you want to make the move to the Super League, or were you content of maybe staying at home?
We played a game against the Dragons down in Mudgee, and I didn't have my best game. I think we lost on the bell. My manager called me and said, I got your 4-year deal at Huddersfield. And I'm emotional at the time. I don't have any offers coming in. I'm like, what's going on? And I remember just hanging up the phone thinking, like, is this really where I'm at 27? Like, I have to go over there. And I said, don't you ever, like, speak about the Super League again. I want to keep working and staying in the NRL. And as it panned out, I was on the brink of signing with Parramatta. So I got offered a 2-year extension to stay at Canberra. And I literally looked him in the eye and said, I'm so unhappy. Like, I couldn't even take your money. Like, I just don't want to be here. I'm someone that needs change. I need something new. I need new challenges. So I was going to go to Para on like a quarter of the money. I said to the missus, like, this is what I want to do. Are you okay with this? And she sort of backed me. So I was going to take a 1-year deal. I was going to use Para similar to the way I used Tigers, 3 years, 4 years before that. And I was going to work hard, get back on track and get another big deal. And just at the 11th hour, my agent said, Warrington's interested. And Warrington typically are known as, one of the biggest spenders in the Super League. And I sort of threw off with him and I said, if I can get this, this, and this, then, I'd think about it. And he called an hour later and he said, you've got everything you want. And I was like, fuck, wow. I should have pushed harder. But then I was like, man, like, I can go over at 27. I can still play some good footy in England. I've always wanted to go to England at some point. Obviously, I wasn't planning that young, but I knew that with my heritage, as I said, I could make a change and pledge my allegiance to England. And as it panned out, I got 2 caps for Great Britain, which I'm extremely proud of. And yeah, I do love it here. As I said, I've been here 5 years now, and it's getting harder, to be away from home. Mum and Dad's getting older. Their grandkids they haven't seen for 4 or 5 years. So, but overall, it's been a really good move. And
then you made your debut for Warrington, I believe, in 2018. 2019?
19, yeah.
They finished 4th that year. Then you make your way over to Leeds. Where's been your preference? Have you enjoyed Leeds more? Have you enjoyed Warrington more? Is it all pretty much the same here?
It's all very similar. Leeds is a bigger club. Leeds, historically, I probably underestimated how big a club they are over here, the Leeds Rhinos, and how much success they've had. Warrington's known as the club that spend a lot but never get any success. Probably like Man United of late or something like that. I couldn't speak more highly of Warrington. Like, that was my first. I guess when you first move over, the club that you're at and how they treat you is how you're going to view the country. And the reason I love the UK so much is for everything that Warrington and the mates I have there. So I'll never say a bad word about them. That was, although some of the worst years with COVID and stuff, also some of the best times and some of the best friends I've made, as well. So then coming to Leeds, there's so much hype around the town and how much success we could potentially have as a team. And we win like 2 from our first 11 games. Our coach quits. Then we get an interim coach in for 4 weeks who's a former player who done a really good job for us. But so we'd gone from like such excitement around the season to like, I kid you not, I was on Seek at home of an evening. I'm like, what jobs could I pick up that's better than this? Because it's just not enjoyable. We're losing every week. The town hates us because we're like this big proud club and we can't win a game. And Rowan Smith comes in and we end up winning like, we end up going on a run of like, I think 12 of our last 14 games. Reminded me a lot of the run we went on in Canberra in 2016, but make it to Old Trafford, make it to the grand final. And we end up losing to St Helens, who win their 3rd or 4th, title, but in the end, a pretty enjoyable season.
How was it adjusting initially? So you come over from Australia. What were you expecting of the Super League, and then how did it actually pan out to be?
We're always taught that it's more attacking style of rugby. The hardest thing for me was when I left the NRL, every person that I spoke to said how much the game was going to suit me, which is exciting, but it's also so much pressure. Like Warrington also. So over here, they have a marquee rule, which you can pay 2 players that's not on the salary cap, which is a good thing for the sport because you can attract, decent players. But but also they announce who the marquees are. So I come in as a marquee and it was like, this guy's coming to save the whole club. Gosh. Warrington's never won a title in like 60 years. So like, this is the guy that's going to get it done. I ended up having a good personal season, but we didn't bring any success in my time there. But I remember at the start, it was just so much, it felt like so much pressure because I was like, yeah, the way you play, it's going to suit it. The game's a bit slower. The middles are a bit slower. So like everything should be fine.
Do they view a lot of players from the NRL that make the transition to the Super League as, okay, this guy's coming in, we're looking good this season?
Yeah, they love the shiny new toy from the NRL. Like even the way they look at me from when they did when I first got here, like they're always excited about the next crop of NRL players that are going to come over. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, they've got a famous saying: if you miss home that much, fuck off back there. They say, but yeah, they're always excited about the next crop that's going to come over.
We asked this to Josh Reynolds and we had him on the show, and I want to get your view on it because you've been here a bit longer. What is the main difference between the Super League and the NRL?
It's a tough question because there's players that come over that, as I say, everyone thinks they're going to light it up and be brilliant, and they end up being terrible. And then there's players that come over that no one really knows about that end up going really well. So I think it's Adam Kieran at Catalans at the moment. He's someone that no one had any idea who he was, but he's come over at an age where he's still pretty hungry and wants to succeed. So he's going quite well. Jai Field, Bevan French is unplayable in certain games. It's just a different game. There's almost 2 styles of rugby you play because the first 3 months is in pissing down rain and it's a slow grinding type of footy, and then you get sunshine in the middle of the season and the game opens up. Like that was certainly what sparked us last year was the better weather and stuff, but it's just different. The game's so fast over there. The game's a lot more regimented in the NRL. When you're going to verse a team, you know exactly what they're going to do. It's just a matter of stopping it. Whereas here, like, you get things that you'd never, like, you'll have a 4-man, like, jamming out of the line to shut a half down. Whereas in the NRL, you'll never see someone leave the line like that. You've got to hold your line, and so there's little things that takes a lot of getting used to.
They're coached to do that. The 4-man to rush out at a halfback.
The thing is, it seems ridiculous, but it often, like to us NRL boys, it often can rattle us because we're like, fucking, what's going on? We've never seen this shit before.
Just trying to come out and take a shot.
Like if props, like the props are like the middles are a bit slower here, but they're certainly tougher. I say to the middles, like, if you go over there, you're tougher than them boys. They can do it for 80 minutes. That's the difference.
Well, that's the thing. In the World Cup, a lot of people said going into the games, England were playing Samoa or Australia, that England have better forwards. They've probably got more conditioned, tougher forwards.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think it's why the forwards at transition do a lot better than what the backs do.
For sure.
And then I don't know the exact reason the backs struggle, but when Samoa actually come over and for the World Cup, and I knew a few of the coaches, and they needed some numbers for a post session. So I went and did a bit against them, man. The athletes, unbelievable. That's the big difference. I'm looking at Joseph Suwali thinking, mate, this kid's 19, 6'5", fucking chiseled from stone. Like, I don't know how they stop him. We actually played. A funny story. So we played in a grand final, right? And our owner, he loves the buck. Any chance to make a bit of money, he loves it, right? So we finish our grand final. We obviously have Mad Monday. So we have Monday, Tuesday, we have a bit of a drink. The following Saturday, he's organised a game for us to play against New Zealand.
After the GF.
We've just been on the piss for 5 days. 10 of our boys were in Ibiza, got back 2 days before the game, and our owner was adamant that if you didn't show up and play for this match, he had the right to terminate our contract. So Paul Reece Martin he's due to play in the World Cup for PNG, and he says, Gary, if I get injured in this match, I miss a World Cup. Like, can you excuse me from this match? And he pulled out his contract and read him word for word exactly why he had to play in the match. So Oh man, it was the weirdest experience. I looked at the actually funny story. I looked at the Kiwis team and I thought, you know what, we're half a chance.
Well, you go into every
I
game.
swear to
don't you?
God, it was like 82-6 or something. I'm like, I fractured my eye socket. Like we didn't even want to be out there. I think it was Braden Nikora, just a clumsy little sort of thumb to the eye, and I end up fracturing my eye.
To be
socket.
fair, Blake, we were watching that game because we had money on it. We picked a lot of NZ try scorers. That's what we were doing in the World Cup. We were just picking try scorers from all of the Tier 1 nations.
Solomona, fuck it.
Oh,
What's
but-
he doing hanging around an edge? You're a half gone, mate. Get back in the middle, please. So big, man.
I think you're 100% right. The transition for backs in the UK to come over to the NRL is much harder than the forwards. You've seen a lot more success with the forwards coming over. Are there any players in the Super League that you see and think these guys should be playing in the NRL?
It's all about attitude because, like, I get teammates all the time ask me, like, what do you think? Do you think I could have a crack? And I always hit them back with the question, why do you want to go over there? And 8 out of 10 of them will say, well, because if it doesn't work out, I can always come back. And I sort of say you've lost already. Like, unless you thoroughly believe that you can go over and leave a mark on the NRL, like some of them have. Like, I don't think Sam Burgess was saying, I'm just going to go give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, I can always come back. But if you're not, like, some of them talk like it's not university. You're not going to do a course and become a better rugby player. Like, you're going to go there. You're either going to fit in, train hard, and make it, or otherwise, in a squad of 30, you'll quickly fall by the wayside, and you'll be flying back to England before you know it.
I mean, there is that lure though. NRL clubs do like bringing in foreign talent. It's like a new toy, maybe like the Aussies in the UK. But for the backs, do you think they struggle to transition because their bodies aren't as prepared as someone that's an NRL winger like Suwali or Tafua that are big built players?
Not 100% sure. It's hard to put your finger exactly. As I said, they're athletes, unbelievable. We've got some great athletes too, don't get me wrong, but I just think in Oz, like, you guys grew up playing rugby yourself. Like, we've been playing tough, hard rugby since we were 8. You know what I mean? Like, I take my son to rugby and it's just not the same. Then they finally get picked in their scholarships, they call it here, so for Rhinos and stuff. But then they're playing against clubs that are putting their scholarships out. They're winning by 80 points. Like, how many times would you see a Panthers team beat an Eels? Harold Matts, like, we've just been playing, like, then we've got our school comps even, like, there's nothing here in school for rugby. You've got so Wigan, Saints, Warrington, Leeds. When their under 16s play each other, it's a great match. But then outside of that, they're winning by 70, 80 points, and they're doing the same in their amateur leagues on a Saturday. There's 2 or 3 teams that'll give them a run, and the rest they're flogging. And I just don't think over the course of their life they're conditioned with enough tough, hard rugby.
It sounds like a development problem, and it's probably like a junior level issue that they have, especially if not many kids are playing it. One thing that's probably been a focal point by the likes of Gus Goulds back in Australia is developing the junior system, and he always has these 5-year plans. He's done it at Penrith. He's now trying to do it at the Dogs. How important is it of a club having a good junior base and not just relying on recruitment?
Recruitment plays its role. You have to have recruitment, but yeah, I think junior development, not only to your own club, but you have a duty to the sport. Like, I think Gus Gild and I think Matt Cameron and a few guys like that finally got Penrith in order. We were a sleeping giant. Like, I was at Panthers when we were awful. We had the 03 final, and then we went, 10, 15 years where we were just, but we shouldn't have been because we had the biggest nursery. But I think clubs like Penrith, they owe it to develop them kids so that they do sprinkle around the league. Like, if you're not at Panthers, you're going to be, whether you're going to a North Sydney Bears trial or a Sydney Roosters trial or those things. So, and I think that's one thing they don't do over here. Like, our club, Leeds, we're a big, strong club, and every kid wants to play at Leeds. But then they sort of, in a way, they stockpile all the best kids, which then doesn't create any competition for anyone else. And it's a very tough one because if your kid's 16, you're going to want him at Leeds. The only alternative is, like, you're going to be in a Castleford scholarship where their systems and their setups and their stadiums and their facilities are, ultimately you wouldn't want your kids there if you had the choice. So it's easy for me as an Australian to sit here and say what they should do for rugby in this country. But the football, it's every kid here grows up wanting to be a footballer, whether it's the lure of the contracts or it's just, we can't rival it.
Well, over the last 10 years, you've played against some of the best of them. Cameron Smith, Jonathan Thurston, Cronk. Who would you say has been your toughest opposition?
I was bit of a left. You'll probably understand it when I say his name, but I had to mark a guy called Dave Taylor one game.
Oh, jeez.
And he was at Souths at the time, and I would have been 21.
Probably weighing in 120 kegs at the
Yeah,
time,
and
Big Dave.
I was about 85, tall, skinny, blonde kid. You know, thought I was pretty good. And I come out in the field and I'm playing against a guy that's 120 kilo. You don't know whether he's going to pass, run, chip, step, cut out. Like he
Prime
had
Dave
it
Taylor.
all, man. He really did have it all. I was lucky enough I got to work with Dave when he come down to Canberra in my last couple of years. And what a legend of a bloke. Just doesn't take life too seriously. And yeah, pretty scary to get. He's not allowed to do weights. He's so big that he can't do weights or you get too muscle bound and it's almost all natural, yeah.
That's crazy.
You sit next to him in a video room and he's like Snorlax, man. He's so loud, bro, but awesome guy.
Well, I don't know if you've been paying much attention to the halves in the NRL right now. There seems to be a bit of a halves shortage in the NRL. They're bringing up a lot of young kids, giving out a lot of debuts. You know, there's issues at the Tigers with like Luke Brooks. He just signed recently with Manly. Ben Hunt wants out at the Dragons, wants to go back home. There definitely is a halves shortage. Do you think, looking at the Super League, there's players that have been like Brodie Croft that have made the transition over? Aiden Caesar, who you play alongside, is in the Super League. Do you think there's still room for players like that in the NRL to come over? Back over?
Apart from Penrith, who have a once-in-a-generation set of halves in Luai and Cleary, I think all the other best teams have halves in their 30s. You know, I think I'm watching, you know, your Adam Reynolds, your Daly Cherry Evans, your Chad Townsends. They're the guys that we sort of grew up playing against. So I think you can't buy experience. And although we might be a bit slower and stuff than we once were, I think being smart between the ears will beat a young kid any day of the week. And the NRL, we're not like the business that it is now and the money they're earning, we're not that far off becoming like an NFL where, you know, you can come in one day and your locker's been cleaned up and you've been traded and things like that. It has become such a big business and everyone's always excited for the next young kid to get a go. But I just worry for some of the young kids that are getting thrown in. Like if you're at the Tigers and you're losing by 50 every week, you'd rather be losing with a set of 35-year-old halves than a set of, you know, kids that are 20 that could potentially scar the rest of their career. I know when Gus Gield come in at the Panthers, when I was there, that was one of his main things, was his first 5 or 6 signings were 32, 33, 34-year-olds. And everyone sort of said, what's this bloke doing? But he had to bring in a few guys to shield the younger kids and wear the brunt of the failures. I think Cameron Serrato was one of them guys. And although even like when I was a young kid, I was like, get me in there. Like I'm better than all these old guys. And that's what we think when we're young. But it's such a long journey, and look at what DCE's doing, man. Like people have doubted him for the last 5-6 years, and what he does at Origin level, and so there's definitely a place for older halves for sure.
Well, talking about yourself, I mean, you're 32 years old now. You've been playing for 10 years. Do you see yourself going back to the NRL?
I always said when I come over, I wouldn't look to go back. As a rugby player, you'd look at everything when the options come up. I'm a pretty confident guy, so I sit back in my lounge room like a lot of the fans do and think I could still cut it. But yeah, I'm off contract at Leeds, and whatever will be will be. I've never been afraid to do things a little bit differently. That's why coming over at 27 wasn't an issue for me. I know some of the other boys, I know Dufty was quoted on saying like Super League's not for him, he's not ready. But I've never been afraid to do it differently. If an opportunity come up to go home, that's something I'd certainly look at. I know my kids would push me into and force me to look at something like that. But I'm really comfortable where I'm at.
Seeing players like Josh Reynolds make the transition back over at the start of this year, does that give you a guide of maybe you can do it, or, you know, he's a bit older than you and probably thought about retirement, you're not there yet? Does that give you an idea of like it's easily accessible for you to do?
Yeah, I'm a pretty confident guy, so I don't even really need to see things like that. Like I still believe I could go back and be the best 14 in the comp and really add to a team that's already going pretty well. I could. Your Dogs fans, I don't know if you saw what I done in 12 minutes in one of my last games for Canberra, but you know, come off the bench and shut the match down in about 10 minutes. I really think I could do a really good job as a 14. I don't think clubs are going to look at me much as, you know, as a starting half, but I could certainly come back and add to a squad and do what I do best.
Well, hypothetical, right? You make your way back to the NRL. Where's the best landing spot for Blake Austin? Which club?
Anyone?
Yeah.
anyone? No. I think.
Because I could see you fitting in at a club like the Dragons, who are losing a Ben Hunt, wouldn't mind an experienced player in their ranks. But then again, Dolphins as well, like a experience over there. The Bulldogs who have struggled with their spine. Where do you think you'd kind of settle in?
No, I think if I was going to go back, I'd want to go to a successful team where I can go back and just focus on me. I think when you're a half for so long, like all your thoughts are for everyone else. Like you've got to be doing this so the team can do that. And I'd love to just go back and sort of release all the shackles and just come on the game when the game's dipping a bit and just add some spark. I think that'd be really enjoyable. But open to all offers if anyone's listening.
Maybe just accept the West Tigers.
Well, they can give me a call if they want. I had a pretty decent season, my last outing for the Tigers. So, but as I said, I'm really comfortable where I'm at. I'd love to win a title over here. I'd love to win a Challenge Cup over here. That's such a big thing. I'd urge you to get to a Challenge Cup match. If a couple of good teams are in it, because we sell out Wembley and it's a wonderful. They call it the road to Wembley, but that's a big achievement. If
Yeah.
we could do that.
No, we definitely want to catch a Super League game while we're here. A lot of people around have stopped us. The UK Rugby League fans see a lot of the Aussie media and Aussie TikTok stuff as well. So they still keep tabs on rugby.
Nice
league.
following here.
We've got a fanatical following.
Mm.
Unfortunately, there's just not enough of them. I just don't see how we make a dent on that other sport. And you can't speak highly enough of the ones that do love the sport. My only concern is you look around the stadium and 80% of the fans are 60 plus. You know what I mean? We are an aging demographic in this country, and it is sort of scary times ahead in this country.
Well, one thing that's, I think, a massive difference between the Super League and the NRL is the media scrutiny, particularly on players. It was just announced today that there's going to be a boycott of media in the NRL at certain times. Has that been very true? Like you've played in Sydney, at a couple of Sydney teams, you played in Canberra, and not that there's scandals all the time, but the media has a telescope on the rugby league players all the time. Is that a big difference over here in the UK?
Yeah, it's one of the attractions, really. Like I can be at a bar and carry on and no one's really asked. Like I can be in Manchester, and you can imagine in Manchester no one's got any idea what rugby league is. So my kids enjoy it. You don't realise what impact it can have on your kids. Like my season in 2015 when I was playing quite well at Canberra, I had a big long goatee coming off my chin, and so anywhere I went, I was pretty like I wasn't Jonathan Thurston, I get that, but I was pretty recognisable, and my kids used to hate it. They couldn't stand it. Like everywhere we'd go, my son would play rugby, and people would line the sidelines just to see if he was going to be any good because they knew my son was playing. Like little things like that were awful. So you come over here and no one's asked. You can be walking down the street. You mentioned the boycott. Like over here, we don't have any players' association or like some of the conditions over here. When I first got over, we played Easter weekend. We played 3 games in 11 days. Like, so you play Easter Friday, then you'd have a game Easter Monday, and then you'd play again the following weekend. Like it was pretty crazy. But I can understand why the owners do it because they have to
Make as much money.
The money on the gate here is everything. Back home, the TV bargaining deal is that's 80% of the money. Whereas here, if they're not putting games on, they're not making money. So they rely on that pretty heavily. So I get that. Our boss organises a game on Boxing Day. So, like, you're trying to enjoy your Christmas and, you've got a game the next day. That's not very enjoyable. But it's always snowing that time of year as well. Wow. So, anything to make a buck, they'll do. And I don't begrudge that because I understand that you've got to keep the game alive. But it is tough going.
Now, we play a game with every guest that we have on. It's called Fill in the Blanks. It's kind of like quick fire questions.
Yep.
Give me a response.
No
Okay? Blank will win the NRL Grand Final this year.
Panthers.
Yeah.
3 in a row.
Yeah.
Repeat.
3-peat.
They just got the team to do it.
Unbelievable, man. Yeah. Nathan Cleary, as I said, once in a generation player. I think Jerome Luai finishes the season strong after missing out on Origin, and I think he's unfairly criticised. I think he plays next to one of the best we're ever going to see, and I think the work that he does for that team gets undervalued.
Blank has been your favourite teammate.
Ooh. I'm going to have to say Aiden Caesar because I know he'll watch it. Aiden, not many people know the real Aiden the way I know him, and, he's one of the most kind-hearted and generous guys I've ever met. He comes across a bit arrogant. I never liked him as a kid.
Yeah.
He played for the Bulldogs. They beat us in the Harold Matts grand final, but really genuine guy.
I'd love to see him back in the NRL. I reckon he's got another stint left in him.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Possibly come back home, Aiden, to the Bulldogs.
We definitely need some halves.
Okay, Blank will win the Man of Steel this season.
Ooh.
For those that don't know, it's Super League Dally M.
I think Bevan French might get it this year. Yeah, he's been unplayable.
I just see him in the highlights every time I see a Super League highlight. It's either him or Matt Duffy doing a long range try.
The thing about Super League, if you're quick, you're like him and Jai Field are unplayable. Yeah, at times for sure.
It's funny seeing guys like that who had probably decent NRL careers and then they just fizzled out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden they're banging in the Super League.
I wouldn't even say he fizzled out. He had a really solid run there with Parramatta. Bevan French.
did, but then you've got Jai who probably didn't have an impact at NRL level at all, and then he's. There's a place for everyone in the world, I guess, and they've found theirs. Brody Croft's playing well, but I think Bevan French.
Yeah, like to see it. And Blank will be the Dally M winner this season. Manu Cleary's been out for a number of
I'm trying
weeks.
to think of the leaderboard.
Payne Haas has been rumoured to be up there. Reece Walsh has been playing really well.
Reece Walsh. What's the rules around suspension?
It does. It costs you points because you can't earn your 3 points. I don't know. Yeah.
3, is it? Payne Haas is injured. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I had Cleary at the start of the year.
I'm going Reece Walsh now just because I think he's in too good a form.
Yeah.
What
a player he is.
He's killing it.
I think he's one of the first guys I've ever seen come into the Origin arena and bring a club footy style. Like, look at Tedesco, and the Origin's all about effort, but he's come in like them block plays and that. That's not something Origin's ever been.
Swings onto the outside effortlessly.
I've seen Roger Fabry said he's not the fastest in the NRL, but he's definitely the quickest. And the pressure he puts them defenders on with his sweeping lines out the back is.
You ever trained with Roger?
I have, yeah. Yeah,
his character, Rog.
Yeah, and he's very good at making you believe you've gained speed even if you haven't. So, no, I'm saying that's a positive. It sounds like a mock, but he
changes your technique of running.
Well, and he's got such a reputation that if he tells you that you've got quicker, you'd going back on the train home going, fuck, Roger says I'm quicker, and
placebo.
And you believe it. Yeah, placebo.
Yeah,
in a way, and that's the standing he's got. So, I've worked with Roger a bit.
I want to get your thoughts on Origin before we wrap it up, because we've had a lot of arguments between ourselves that the coaching isn't necessarily a big factor. But I believe particularly this year's Origin, that the difference between Queensland and New South Wales has been Billy Slater and the New South Wales coaching staff, whether that's Brad Fittler, Brandy, and the crew there, the selectors, whatever it be. You look at both teams on paper, both solid teams match up pretty evenly, particularly between games 1 and 2. Do you think coaching is that big of an impact, particularly in Origin?
Oh, for sure. I think the thing that stumped me is a lot of people have been saying that you don't need to be such a good tactical coach. Look at Billy Slater. But I reckon Billy Slater would be the opposite. I reckon he'd be one of the sharpest.
100%.
Coming from Melbourne.
Although, because I think when they think of him, they think played for Maroons, means a lot to him from Queensland, which he'll have all them things, but I reckon people would be surprised just how tactical and how clever he is as a coach. I've worked with Brad Fittler, and Brad Fittler's a great coach. I think looking at the Blues, I think they've got a few selections wrong. Some of them that you just sort of couldn't really understand, but I think Brad Fittler as a coach, I really enjoyed working under him for sure.
And the last of the quick-fire questions. You've been in the UK for 5 years. Do you miss getting the Bondi tan?
Well, I'm from Mount Druitt, so and do you know what? Sunbeds are a thing over here.
Yeah, they're massive.
So I'll get on the sunbed
old
every now and
solariums.
then. There is a few things I miss. Customer service in this country is awful.
Yeah.
But then you can't blame them because the poor buggies are on like $5.50 an hour or something like that.
Yeah. Did it take you a while to adjust to the pounds?
Because the exchange rate as an Aussie is terrible.
Well, the first year or two you're here, you convert everything. Like you're buying a steak and you go, man, that's fucking $28 back home.
Yeah.
So once I've been here long enough that you stop doing that at some point. The other thing I miss is that there's no morning culture in the UK. Obviously for winter, you can understand why. But the sun comes up at 4 a.m.
Shops ain't open till 11.
You won't get a cafe open until 10 a.m. Like, what are you fucking doing?
Yeah,
You're missing
no
out. Like,
cafes.
there's no morning culture. So it's funny. I asked my 5-year-old after she went to Oz what she missed the most, and she said it's warm in the mornings. So she's excited to get back for warm mornings.
There you go. Yeah. There's also online rumblings that you played an international game with Portugal.
Oh, yeah, I did. I've played a few actually.
You're a Portugal native, Blake?
Oh man, I had some Portuguese chicken once. Do you know what? I'm embarrassed to sort of like I wouldn't change it because it sent me on the path that I've been on. But I do get a bit embarrassed, and I didn't do it as a piss taker or anything like that. My dad knew the coach, so my dad played with a guy that married a Portuguese woman, and he had a desire to start Portuguese rugby league. I played with the De Goises. Isaac didn't play, but his brothers did. Isaac used to run the water. He said, "Do you want to come for a match?" And I was 16 at the time. So, like, they were playing Malta. So, Jared Zemmett was playing. We were also playing... Who did John Scandalis play for? Greece?
Yeah, Greece.
So, he was playing for Greece. So, I thought, I'm going to get a chance to mix it amongst some blokes that have played a bit of NRL, see where I'm at. So, I took that as an opportunity to go and try. In the end, I ended up being one of their better players, and they invited me back 2 or 3 times. And... I was at Canberra and there was a kid that won a competition, and for winning the competition you got to interview your favourite raider, and I had to show him around the facility, and we're halfway through the tour and the dad looks at his 9-year-old son and he says, "Come on, Brandon, tell Blake why you've picked him." I said, "Oh, how come you've picked me, mate?" And he went, "I'm Portuguese too." I kid you not. And I said, "Oh, that's great, mate. Yeah, awesome." And then we continued on the tour, and I had to pull the dad aside and I said, "Listen, mate, I didn't want to break his heart, but I feel like I've got to tell you that I'm not actually Portuguese, and I'm really sorry. Like, if the pale skin and the blonde hair didn't give it away, yeah, I'm not Portuguese."
So you're from Ronaldo's village, but Madeira.
But if you the amount of times I've had to answer this question, man, like it's a bit embarrassing for me.
Mate, we've done the old ring-ins where we've had to. It's nothing to be bad. You're young, you want an opportunity. It's play on.
Well,
I'd claim that I'm Portuguese. You're Portuguese now.
We went on a pre-season tour to Portugal, and I was quite surprised there was no roll out of the airport or anything. No one really knew I was coming back. So
you put Portuguese rugby league on the map.
Yeah, so I played for Portugal, played for Great Britain. And I'm from Mount Druitt. So. And
Mount Druitt, boy, last one to wrap up. Western Sydney or Leeds?
Oh, come on, man. It's not. I miss it so much. From Doonside, so I lived in Doonside most of my life. Obviously, Doonside and Mount Druitt always had a rivalry when I was growing up. So I was always the guy in between. I used to have to get the train back to Mount Druitt every day, so I had to stay tight with them. But then I'd play on the weekends with my Doonside boys. So miss it so much. It's now got to a point where it's cool to be from Western Sydney. I remember I used to always be proud of it, but probably not as loud as these boys. You used to, keep it on the down low a bit that you were from Mount Druitt, but also, like, it used to be rugby. Rugby league was the only way to get out of Mount Druitt. Now we've got rappers and UFC fighters and people doing. There's a podcast studio now.
2-7, shout out to 2-7.
Yeah, guys doing shoes. So they're setting a really good example for all the young kids coming through. And I just wish I had my kids back there experiencing a bit more of it, but it won't be long.
Well, mate, you'll be welcome back with open arms again. I want to thank you for your time. Really appreciate you making the trip down from Leeds. Mate, I'm sure we'll be seeing you back in the NRL in no time, but we've seen you back in Western Sydney with the rest of the boys, mate. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks,
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, bro.
Legend.